أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Today inshallah we'll touch upon some of the themes of chapter 72 from the glorious Quran, Surah Al-Jinn, the Jinn. The previous surah, Surah Nuh, gave an example of someone who calls to Allah from among people. That was Prophet Noah. And this surah gives another example of callers to Allah, but from this time, from the world of Jinn. They heard the message and they were motivated to spread it among their kind. So the main message for anyone who calls to Allah is monotheism, is Tawhid, affirming the oneness of Allah in all matters. And that is the main message of the Quran and the main message of Islam and the main message that all of the prophets came with. And the surah also combats incorrect beliefs about concerning the jinn. Like they know the future or the unseen, or they have some special powers independent of what Allah Ta'ala has given them. So many of the points that the jinn mentioned to their people were mentioned in the prior surah by Prophet Noah. The reward for obedience is happiness and the good life in this world and in the next. And the punishment for disobedience, is for disobedience and disbelief and destruction in this life and eternal punishment in the hereafter. So these are the themes that the surah revolves around. So if we take a look at the verses, verse 1, قُلْ أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ أَنَّهُ اسْتَمَعَ نَفَرٌ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَقَالُوا إِنَّا سَمِعْنَا قُرْآنًا عَجَبًا. In verse 1, say, O Muhammad, it has been revealed to me that a group of the jinn listened and said, indeed, we have heard an amazing Quran. So we believe in Allah and that the Quran is His word. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs us that there are other beings in existence called al-jinn, our duty is to believe in them. We are not required to produce any proof or investigate, as these are matters of the unseen. Even Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not know of them other than Allah had told him and told us that these beings that are made of pure flame exist. Verse 2. So when they exclaimed about the Quran, that's amazing, they said it guides to the right course, and we have believed in it, and we will never associate with our Lord anyone. So monotheism is the main message of the faith, and the Quran is the truth from Allah, guiding to all that is good. And the Arabs before Islam claimed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala married from the jinn and produced the angels. That's how the angels came to being, which is false. The facts in the Quran give the jinn their true measure away from myths and exaggerations, that they are just another of Allah's creation that we cannot perceive. They can see us, but we cannot see them. Verse 6, and there were men from mankind who sought refuge in men from the jinn, so they only increased them in burden. So the message of Tawhid is monotheism, is going to Allah for all needs. Seeking help from others, thinking that they have any power, is shirk. It's a great sin. It's associating partners with Allah, which is an unforgivable sin. This type of association will only lead to misery and destruction. And jinn do not have any independent power except what Allah has given them. So there's no point going to anyone but Allah. Verse 13, and the jinn, Allah is quoting the jinn, and when we heard the guidance, we believed in it. And whoever believes in his Lord will not fear deprivation or burden. So the jinn are like human. They are free to act and free to believe, and they will be rewarded or punished from their actions. So everything in creation has no choice, but has no choice in the matter. They have to do whatever Allah created them for. The only two species that have been given the free will are jinn and men. So we are one of two groups that we were given the freedom, the trust to believe in Allah willingly. And when we do that, then we get the infinite reward and being raised above all other creation. And when we refuse to believe, then we fall below the worst of creation and will deserve punishment. And then the surah starts talking about concepts of Tawhid, of monotheism. In verse 18, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. And he revealed in the Quran that the masajid are for Allah, so do not invoke with Allah anyone. So this is a very important statement, that all acts of worship should be dedicated to Allah Ta'ala alone. And masajid is a very general term because it's the plural of masjid and it's a plural of masjid, which are two different terms. Masjid is in our minds as a place where it's the house of Allah where you go to pray. But masjid is the organ that you prostrate with. So the masajid is a plural of different words, but they all come together in the plural form. So any place that you prostrate to Allah in is a masajid. Body parts that you prostrate with, your forehead, your hands, your knees, when you make prostration, those are masajid. Times of prostration, prayers, the prayer times, is also masajid. Places of worship where you gain knowledge of the faith, that's the common understanding of the term. So Tawhid, al-masajid lillah, all of these are for Allah alone. So Tawhid is to dedicate all of the above exclusively for Allah. The place where you worship, your body that you prostrate with, the houses that you do that in, all should be dedicated to Allah with no partners. Verse 19, And when the servant of Allah stood up supplicating him, they almost became upon him a compacted mess. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ worshipped Allah and called mankind to know Allah and to worship him. The description of servitude, Abdullah, وَإِنَّهُ لَمَّا قَامَ Abdullah. The description of servitude to Allah is the highest level of praise for a human being. And when the call to Allah is made, believers will gather to hear the message, and disbelievers will gather to fight the message. This is the reality of life. So the verse is very general, that's the reality of life. The believers will get together and the disbelievers will get together for totally opposite purposes. Verse 20, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَدْعُو رَبِّي وَلَا أُشْرِكُ بِهِ أَحَدًا. Say, O Muhammad, I only invoke my Lord and do not associate with him anyone. So this is a pivotal verse. That Tawhid is the main topic of this verse and the surah in general. That we seek Allah's help alone. That jinn have no control over man, and nobody else has any control over man. It's only Allah. And we worship Allah alone, so masajid belong to Allah alone. And our hearts are only attached to Allah, so servitude and being a abd can only be to Allah. So these three main points are summarized in this chapter. So tell them, O Muhammad, innama. The verse use the word innama adat qasr. It's to specify and make the meaning exclusive. That Allah used it to affirm the exclusion of invocations only to him. So without innama, without that term, the meaning could be, well, you can invoke Allah and you can invoke somebody else. But the presence of قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَدْعُو رَبِّي, that innama, it makes supplications specific and exclusive to Allah. You ask Allah. You don't ask anyone else. And verses 21, 22, and 23, it says, قُلْ إِنِّي لَا أَمْلِكُ لَكُمْ ضَرًّا وَلَا رَشَدًا. Say, indeed, I do not possess for you the power of harm or right direction. In 22, say indeed there will never protect me from Allah anyone if I should disobey, nor will I find in other than him a refuge. 23rd, but I have for you only notification from Allah and his messages. And whoever disobeys Allah and his messenger, then indeed for him is the fire of hell. They will abide therein forever. So again, the principles of Tawhid are here. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ or any caller to Allah cannot harm or benefit, guide or misguide anyone. No prophet can put guidance in anyone's heart. He can only deliver and clarify the message and provide practical examples. Guidance and misguidance are choices each person decides to do. This is very important. Nobody can say, oh, so-and-so misguided me. No, he suggested it and you followed him and misguided yourself. So misguidance or guidance is in everyone's power. Verse 24, حتى إذا رأوا ما يوعدون فسيعلمون من أضعف ناصرا وأقل عددا. The disbelievers continue until when they see that which they are promised, that means the punishment, then they will know who is weaker in helpers and less in numbers. All powers belong to Allah. This is Tawhid. We are all weak and helpless in front of Allah. Any person who claims he can benefit or harm another outside of Allah's will and plan is a liar, because nobody has anything without Allah giving it to them. Verse 25, say, I do not know if what you are promised, that means the day of judgment, that what you are promised is near, or if my Lord will grant for it a long period. All knowledge belongs to Allah. Nobody knows when His promises will come, but they surely will. So His promises means resurrection, means the hereafter, means heaven and hell. These are all promises from Allah that are sure to happen. When? We don't know, but we know for sure that they are happening. Verses 26 and 27. عالم الغيب فلا يظهر على غيبه أحد إلا من ارتضى من رسول فإنه يسلك من بين يديه ومن خلفه رصدا. He means Allah, knower of the unseen, and He does not disclose His knowledge of the unseen to anyone, except whom He has approved of messengers, and indeed He sends before each messenger and behind him observers. So Allah Ta'ala gives some of His knowledge of the unseen to whom He chooses among prophets and messengers. In verse 28, لِيَعْلَمَ أَنْ قَدْ أَبْلَغُوا رِسَالَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ وَأَحَاطَ بِمَا لَدَيْهِمْ وَأَحْصَى كُلَّ شَيْءٍ عَدَدًا. This is the last verse of the surah. That He may know that they have conveyed the messages of their Lord, and He has encompassed whatever is with them, and has enumerated all things in number. The Prophet's mission, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and all of the Prophets, alayhimussalatu, their mission and the mission of every believer who follows in their footsteps is to declare the truth with their speech, convey the message, and perform deeds according to the message he is conveying, which is leading by example. So for the Prophet ﷺ, he delivered the message, and his sunnah is the practical implementation of this message. So this was the life of every prophet. They lived their message and offered practical examples to follow. And anyone who calls to Islam, if you do not implement and practice what you preach, nobody will listen to you. Because people learn with their eyes. They don't learn with their ears. They can hear the best of speech, but if they see the caller to Allah doing something else, they will not believe. They will stop listening to the message. So Allah's knowledge encompasses everything with perfect and intimate knowledge of the most minute detail. So this statement is a relief for the righteous, because they know that no good act will go without recognition and reward from Allah. Don't worry about the recognition of others. If Allah knows it, that's all you need, because He will know your intention. He knows what you set out to do. He knows the results, and He will reward or punish accordingly. It is also a warning to the ones who deviate that Allah Ta'ala is intimately aware of the smallest details of their actions and their ramifications until the day of judgment, and He will hold them accountable. Now I will finish inshallah with why the surah was named Surah al-Jinn. That when the Jinn heard the Quran, they believed in it and turned into callers to Allah among their people. We should be more motivated than the Jinn in spreading this faith and the truth of Tawhid. And it's a reminder that, that they also, among the Jinn, they call to Allah, and every human and every believer should be a good caller to Allah with the truth of the message and the truth of His behavior. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.